Ever imagine, like, swapping a hard hat for one of those high-vis vests, and then instead of, just any construction site, you're going deep down into a mine where all this crazy tech meets the, like, raw power of nature?
Yeah, it's not your average electrician gig down there.
Not even close, right?
Right.
That's the daily grind for these mine electrical engineers.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's way more intense than just, like, fixing a busted lamp.
You hit the nail on the head. We're talking about the lifeline of entire mining operations here. These folks ensure everything runs smoothly and safely, and that's no easy feat in such a demanding environment.
And that's what we're diving into today. We're using RoleCatcher's in-depth guide. They've got everything from job descriptions to interview tips. Think of it as our map to unearth some serious career gold. Ready to dig in?
Let's illuminate this fascinating career path.
Love it. So RoleCatcher kicks things off with the basics, defining the role as supervising the procurement, installation, and maintenance of electrical equipment.
Right.
But honestly, that feels like saying a surgeon just uses sharp tools, doesn't it?
It's just the tip of the iceberg. These engineers are more than just electricians. They're problem solvers, managers, safety champions, you name it. Think about the sheer scale of a mine, the massive machinery, the ventilation systems, all powered by these intricate electrical grids.
A whole other world down there.
Exactly. One wrong move could lead to major consequences, impacting not just productivity, but more importantly, the lives of the miners.
Okay, now that's what I call high stakes.
Mm.
And speaking of stakes, RoleCatcher mentions these engineers can earn a pretty penny. Any idea what kind of numbers we're talking here?
Well, based on RoleCatcher's data, the average salary can easily hit six figures. And some senior level roles even go way beyond that.
Wow.
Of course, location and experience play a role, but those figures, they reflect the level of responsibility and the often challenging work conditions.
Speaking of challenging, let's talk about the work environment itself. RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat it, mentioning long hours, remote locations, and, well, let's be honest, working in a mine probably means it's not for the faint of heart.
Right. You got that right. It's not your typical 9 to 5 office job. You need a certain type of, I guess, grit and adaptability to thrive in those conditions.
Yeah.
We're talking extreme temperatures, sometimes cramped spaces, and the constant need to stay alert, ready for anything.
Definitely sounds like you need to be on your toes. It's not for everyone, but I bet that sense of adventure is a big part of what draws people in.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like the ultimate test of your skills and resilience.
Right.
But what about the long-term picture here? I mean, is this career path as stable as the, well, rocks they work around?
That's a great question, and it's where things get a little more, well, interesting.
Yeah.
See, RoleCatcher points out that mining is a cyclical industry, meaning job security can ebb and flow with things like commodity prices and global demand. You never know what's around the corner. But there's a silver lining. As technology in mining advances, so does the need for skilled mine electrical engineers. That's the thing. It's not just about digging stuff up anymore.
All right, it's got to be sustainable, too.
Exactly. And that's where these skilled engineers come in, designing these smart grids, integrating solar power into the mix. The possibilities are huge. It's like they're shaping the future of mining.
Okay, you've definitely got me sold on that whole future part. But let's take it back a step. How does someone actually break into this field? What's the path from, like, the classroom to actually working in a mine?
Well, RoleCatcher does a great job outlining those educational paths. And it's not always what you might expect.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, of course, you have your electrical engineering, your mining engineering degrees. Those are the classics. But there's also a lot of overlap with things like electronics engineering, power systems, even computer science.
Hold on, computer science. I get that mines are using more tech these days, but coding seems a bit far from, actually being in a mine.
It's more connected than you might think. Mines are becoming really data-driven. We're talking sensor networks, automated equipment, massive amounts of data that need to be analyzed. Having that computer science background, it's a huge advantage.
Wow, I never would have thought of that.
And it's only going to get more important as technology keeps advancing.
So we're talking about a seriously multidisciplinary field then. You're not just flipping switches down there. You're designing complex systems, analyzing data, basically a tech-savvy problem solver, just, with a hard hat on.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher, they really highlight that in their section on functions and core abilities. One skill that really stood out to me was reading comprehension.
Reading comprehension.
Yeah.
Seriously, I wouldn't have put that at the top of the list for a, high-voltage career.
Think about it, though. Mine electrical engineers are constantly dealing with all sorts of technical documents, safety regulations, equipment manuals. They have to understand all of that stuff.
Right.
One wrong interpretation, one missed detail, and things could go really wrong.
That's a good point. So it's not just about being good with your hands. You need to have a sharp mind, too, to keep everything running smoothly and, most importantly, safely. All right, let's say you've aced your classes, you know the manuals inside and out. What does the actual career progression look like?
So, RoleCatcher divides it into three main stages: entry level, junior engineer, and senior engineer. And what I appreciate is that they go beyond just titles. They actually give you a sense of the day-to-day responsibilities and how those change as you gain experience.
So you're not just stuck doing the same thing forever. There's actual room to grow, take on more responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. For example, an entry-level engineer, they might focus on assisting with equipment maintenance and troubleshooting, that sort of thing. But as they gain experience, they could move into project management, overseeing installations, maybe even designing electrical systems for new mining projects.
Okay, so there's definitely a path upwards.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher also has a ton of resources for interview prep. They even break down common questions for mine electrical engineers. Speaking of which, you mentioned AI screening tools earlier. Honestly, I have no idea what those are. Can you break that down for me, for our listeners?
Sure, it's a pretty new thing in hiring. Some companies use AI software now to scan resumes and applications. It's basically looking for specific keywords, skills, things like that to see if you'd be a good fit for the job. It's supposed to help them narrow down the pool when they have a ton of applicants.
So it's like a digital gatekeeper, deciding who gets through to the next round. How can you make sure your resume makes it past the AI and into the hands of an actual human?
That's actually something I really like about RoleCatcher. They analyze your resume using similar AI tech to what a lot of companies use these days. It tells you how well your resume matches up with specific job descriptions and even gives you suggestions to improve it so you have a better chance of getting noticed.
That's brilliant.
It's like having a secret weapon in the job search game. You get to play the AI game even before you step into the arena. Talk about leveling the playing field. It's like that saying, know thy enemy.
Right.
But in this case, the enemy is actually like a helpful algorithm.
Exactly. And speaking of algorithms, RoleCatcher uses AI in some pretty cool ways itself. Remember that career compass feature we touched on earlier?
Yeah, the one where you put in your skills and it maps out potential career paths for you, that thing was wild.
That's the one. And it's not just for folks who are just starting out. Even if you're already a mine electrical engineer, you can use it to see what else is out there, like different specializations, growth opportunities, maybe even see how your skills could transfer to a whole other industry.
So no matter where you are in your career, it sounds like RoleCatcher can be a total game changer.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting? RoleCatcher mentions how AI is starting to change the actual interview process too. We've talked about resume screening. But imagine having to interview with an AI instead of a real person.
Whoa, okay, now that is next level. You mean like a chatbot asking you about your experience with, like, high voltage systems?
Yeah. It might sound crazy, but it's already happening in some industries. Some companies are using AI-powered video interviews now to, assess how well candidates communicate, their body language, even how they solve problems in real time.
That's kind of amazing. And also a little terrifying. How do you even prepare for something like that?
Well, I'm not sure about practicing your robot voice or anything.
Right.
But honestly, I think the key is to be clear, concise, Focus on showing how you think, how you approach problems.
So it's less about trying to, beat the AI and more about just being your genuine self.
Exactly. And highlighting the skills that are harder for AI to replicate. Things like creativity, adaptability, that ability to think on your feet in a tricky situation.
Because at the end of the day, even the smartest AI out there can't replace good old-fashioned human ingenuity, right?
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this deep dive has definitely been eye-opening for anyone listening who's feeling energized, maybe even a little curious about the world of mine electrical engineering. I highly recommend checking out RoleCatcher. We'll link to their guide and their platform in the show notes. Trust me, it's a goldmine of information.
And hey, who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one designing the electrical grid for a fully automated, solar-powered mine.
Now, that's a future I could definitely get behind. Thanks for joining us on this electrifying journey, everyone. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.